Hello, class 12 students. Today we will go with a new poetry from our Reverie ISC collection of poems, The Darkling Thrush by Thomas Hardy. One of the most renowned poets and novelists in English literature history. His most of the works in literature field reflect the social and moral concerns of the Victorian era. The poem The Darkling Thrush is a meditative poem where the poet talks about the dying of the 19th century and beginning of the 20th century. Originally, this poem was titled by the century's deathbed 1900, means the transition between the Victorian era and modern era. Later it was titled The Darkling Thrush. Darkling means in the dark, and thrush is a singing bird, which shows a ray of hope. Dear students, the Victorian era was marked by intense and rapid change in politics, society, and religious beliefs due to the developments in science and technology. These changes created a feeling of hopelessness and bleak future. Hardy was disillusioned with the ways in which industrialization was changing human beings and their relation to their environment. Many of the people flocked to cities to work in factories and live in row houses. The agricultural depression of the 1870s further depleted the number of remaining farmers. However, all the evidence during Hardy's time belied any hope for a bright future. The wars from 1899 to 1902 brought poverty in industrialized cities as the working class people were devoid of wages. This technological process and scientific knowledge brought more misery and pain. The poet feels himself as an isolated man. He desires for that simpler, truer word and seeks to recapture something that is lost. But old century is dead. And the outlook for the new century is bleak. The thrush bird's ecstatic sound gives a ray of hope. Though being aged, frail, gaunt, and small, due to the song of the bird, the poet changed from gloom to hope. Thus, this poem, The Darkling Thrush, is about the lack of hope and the doomed state of the world where everything is dark, where thrush, a singing bird, sings a song on a gloomy evening of the last day of the year. Dear students, before we start our poem, let us have a glimpse over the substance of the poem to well comprehend it. The narrator speaks of a frost-beaten landscape, grey and lifeless, and how it makes him feel miserable and depressed. The poet looks out at the wintry landscape, which appears to him to be the corpse of the century's end, with its land barren and shrunken. The cloudy sky is like the crypt for the corpse, and the sound of the winter wind a lament for the dead person that is the century. Every living creature seems as devoid of passion. The poet's word choice creates an atmosphere of separation from the rest of the world. In the poem, the poet says about the broken lyres is a classical image of disharmony and perhaps points to a lack of joy in the poet's vision of life. Then there comes a change from acceptance of the harder aspects and times in life to embrace of what joys exist. The theme of hope is introduced with the appearance of a songbird. A full throated song sung by an old thrush was heard, and the mournful mood of the poet started changing. The growing gloom is checked by that spirited song. Hopeful thoughts and cheer fill the atmosphere. The bird had lifted poet's mood from a melancholic state to a joyful state. Thus, the poem, which began sorrowfully, ended on a note of hope. Thus, we can see that hope holds an influence with such great intensity and in strength that it can conquer over the worst of miseries and sorrows. So, children, this was the gist of the poem. So, today till here. In next meeting, we will go with the poetry in detail. Thank you.